stuffed. My compliments to the chef.
My pleasure. Did you enjoy your time with the Marshal?
Mm-hmm.
So, what's that thing on your face?
This?
Yeah, X marks the spot.
That's just a scratch. The other guy got off a lot worse.
Worse than looking like some kind of thug?
Speaking of which, who was this other guy?
They call him the Blade Master.
Gladio?
Yeah, who do you think it is?
Catch you at a bad time.
Are you here yet?
Yeah, I'm at the Crow's Nest.
Good. Thanks for agreeing to meet with me.
Sure.
So, are you ready to move out?
Of course. What about you? Are you mentally prepared?
Of course. I'll be right over.
About time.
What'll it be?
Just the water's fine. Thanks.
Allow me to ask you once more. Are you sure you're ready to take on the Blade Master?
I went up against the High Commander and got my ass handed to me. I didn't stand a chance. And I never will unless I get more power.
Then answer my question. Are you ready or not?
You think I would have called you here if I weren't?
So you're ready to face death. Gilgamesh awaits challengers in the deepest recesses of those ruins. It's been 30 years since we uncovered the caves. We've sent countless expeditions, but all of our efforts have afforded us no rewards. And no survivors.
Except for you. You undertook the trial, and you made it back alive. Barely.
Let's move.
And welcome to part 21 of Final Fantasy XV, where today we're tackling episode Gladiolus, a DLC launched a few months after the release of Final Fantasy XV. This is set during Chapter 7, whilst the rest of the crew were off doing their Party of Three shenanigans with Aranea. Gladiolus, after his defeat against Ravus, is feeling a little underwhelmed and a little disappointed in himself, and feels like he's not strong enough to defend the king and be the rightful shield he's supposed to be. So reached out towards Kor as to find a way to do it and do the trial that Kor survived, getting Kor's nickname of Kor the Immortal. He got that nickname from surviving this very trial. So Gladiolus wants to tackle it himself, knowing that outside of Kor no one has ever survived it. And it was also the way for Final Fantasy XV to find a way to include a series staple, which is the Gilgamesh. He's very different in this game, we'll get to that when we get to him, because usually he's a fourth wall breaking, six-armed madman with a lot of guts and honour, but he's just a complete goof. And you'll probably notice in this DLC episode, the HUD's different. Because it's only Gladio you're playing as, I'm guessing they felt like it was unnecessary for him to have it any other way, and so made the entire right thing Gladio-centered. Part of me kind of wish they did this in the main game, but if you swap to Gladio, it swapped to this HUD. And slight spoilers, when we get to episode Ignis and episode Prompto, they also have their own HUDs. So I kind of wish they did the same for that as well, as you swap between them. But I'm alright with this, it's cool. Once again, I'll go for it just in case you haven't been paying attention or things like that, or whether you just wanted to come here for episode Gladiolus, which is fair enough if so. The way Gladio works is a lot closer to a traditional hack and slash. When you're wailing on the enemies, you can build up combos to start building up whatever your special techniques, which right now maxes out a Tempest. if you block attacks, you'll build up your rage meter. If you hit square, which is the default for block, on the frame that the attack connects, you will parry it, which is what you keep seeing now. When you parry, you get a stupendous boost to your rage meter, which will be your damage multiplier as well, and a free strike. There's also, for episode Gladiolus, a mode called Score Attack, and we'll get to it more when we tackle it, but that'll be like after the main adventure. But in Score Attack, the easiest way to start racking up the points is that your damage multiplier is also a score multiplier. So you can just keep on getting the perfect blocks, but then not counter-attacking by hitting attack afterwards. You can build up the meter, and once you max it out, then unleash hell and kill everything and get a lot of points in. But let's move on. It's simple enough. The magic bar is kinda useless, I'm not gonna lie. I'm not sure why there's a blue bar under his health. You're not gonna see us use it once, because there's no use for it. It's just kind of there, which is weird. This is our first like mini boss, our first challenge. There's only one boss I'll be doing the stat run for, and it's the final boss of this episode. We're doing the whole episode this part. The next episode we do as well, I also managed to have recorded in one part, but that one's a lot closer to the mark, because this video is very long, but the other one's a lot closer to the hour limit. And it was tempted to split it in half, but I eventually decided against it to keep it as one big video. And the last episode, that one I've yet to record, so I have no idea whether that'll be 1 or 2 parts. But that one actually has a clear like middle cut split point that I could use if I decide to. Anyway, once you kill this mini-boss, it shouldn't be too tough. Core will vanish, and we'll be taken to this weird, like, spiritual plane, where we'll have our first interaction with Gilgamesh. Which I'll talk about straight away. Final Fantasy XV's Gilgamesh doesn't have 6 arms, he has 1. Quite a cut down, he's lost 5 arms. But it's not the same Gilgamesh, it's just the same name. It's the first time in the series they've used the Sid and Biggs and Wedge formula on Gilgamesh, which is same name, different person. Because usually Gilgamesh is a dimension hopper, which is why it's always the same Gilgamesh in every game he turns up in.
Is that so?
I like how Gilgamesh at the first has so little faith in us he uses a basic sword. This is a scripted to lose fight, so I won't go through Gilgamesh's stats now because you can't win. Anything you try and block will be thrown back at you, as you can see. And his attacks hit like a truck, and your attacks do piss anything. So just keep on wailing at him, and eventually the game will let you go, essentially, and just let you go on your way. Eventually, yeah, there we go. You get a little scene. Hey, doesn't this look familiar for poor Gladio? This looks very similar to when Ravus handed his ass to him. Which is the sole reason why he's here in the first place. Yeah, see, it's showing it now. I'm talking over this cutscene because it's quite small and it's just setting the scene. And I've already shown up for enough cutscenes, but there's a few more later on that I will stop talking for because they're more important. But this one is more about Gilgamesh pointing out, so look, if you want to overcome the trial and you want to do everything to win here, you'll need more than just raw strength. You'll need more than just being a shield. You'll need to be an even greater being than this.
If you do not fear death, then go forth with reckless abandon and prove your worth.
So if you've played the previous Final Fantasy games and are used to those games, Gilgamesh, this will be quite a throw, of course. You might be what the fuck? Especially 13-2 in particular, because 13-2, he was a DLC fight similar to his DLC in this, and the opening line is something along the lines of, oh, I'm so happy you actually decided to get me. I was getting concerned that I'd never escape the digital limbo and never buy the DLC. And it's like, wait, what?
Blade Master. He's a master of blades.
Alright, Core. No need to be a dick. So this Blade Master, he's a master of blades. What else are you expecting? Gee, thanks, Core. To be fair, this is the most screen time of Core you're going to get in one concentrated piece. So make the most of it. Because outside of this and Chapter 2, you really don't see Core that much. There's a section much later on added to the Royal Edition, but we won't get to that till much later. That has more Core in it, but that's not much more Core. There are these interactive blocks over here. When you tap X at them, you'll automatically climb them. Don't know why they couldn't just make it a path for you to jump up, but whatever. You have unlimited sprint as well for some reason. Gladio could just sprint for, like, endlessly like a trooper, which I do enjoy. I definitely appreciate it. I think that's more built for score attack though, because score attack you are under a time limit as well, so they probably put it in there just to save the hassle. These rest points are only really there for you to make conversation with Core. But you'll have cup noodles, and then afterwards you'll be able to ask Core things about his journey and obviously save your progress. Because you can't save anywhere in the episodes. You can only save at designated saving points. It's the same for all 3 episodes in the main game, so get used to it. But after every campfire rest point, Core will come over and sit by you and will start a conversation, and you can choose to continue it or skip it if you want to. Each one I continue for the sake of hearing what he has to say, or what he has to offer. But so you can ask him to tell you more about it or ignore it. As in each one I will be asking him to explain more so you can get more information out of it if you decide to listen in.
Serving his shield. In his eyes, the weak aren't worthy of living.
So Gilgamesh is survival of the fittest. He's a firm believer of that, is he?
I was a fool back then too, and I was punished.
Yeah, but Core, like, you didn't leave with any, like, scars on your face. Like, Gladio's already got one, and he hasn't even entered it yet. I think it was more that his pride took an absolute beating when Core entered.
Back to the trials.
No, back to it.
Keep your eyes and ears open.
Done and done.
I think the only disappointing thing with episode Gladiolus that I'll get out of the way now and probably repeat like 5 or 6 times because this is a long part and I usually run out of things to say. My only issue is that when episode Gladiolus first launched, this was the only way you were playing any Gladio, and it's not like with episode Prompto and episode Ignis. Both of them are pretty sizable episodes, so it doesn't. So you got a fair amount of it. This is the shortest episode by quite a stretch, and if you know what you're doing and skipping story, you can get it done in under half an hour. So you didn't really get as much time with Core as Gladio even as you perhaps wanted. And that is like a genuine criticism I had when they introduced new playable characters. When it first started, Gladio just didn't have any real time to play with. Whilst Prompto and Ignis, when we get to their respective episodes, there's a lot more to do. Yeah, I'll be skipping some of the optional stuff just to keep up with it, because the optional stuff means nothing in the long run. Especially episode Ignis. All the optional stuff in episode Ignis is nothing but score, because it actually scores you as you go in that episode, instead of making it a separate mode like it does with episode Gladiolus. So it's like you're only doing the extra things if you want a higher score. So for the sake of keeping the video barely under an hour, I won't be bothering. But I think I show off 1 in the recording. I have to check back. I'm pretty sure I show off 1 just to say that this is a thing, but then no more after that. Also, episode Gladio was probably the first time people realised that there's a recovery mechanic in this game. Noctis can get one too, but it's one of the very last skills you'll get because it's extremely expensive. The way it works is if you hit square as you hit the ground, you'll restore all the health you lost from that strike and immediately get back up for a counter-attack. And so Gladio and Prompto have it naturally, Noctis can learn it, but Ignis has a special version of it that's ridiculously overpowered, because it tells you exactly when the frame is, and will give you and will give you a free counter-attack that when you do it, will give you invincibility frames. So sometimes it's actually a good idea to let yourself get hit to the ground if you know the attack's going to floor you, because then you can just hit square, hit circle, and you get a free strike in without actually losing any health you've lost, technically. It's ridiculously powerful with Ignis. But Ignis has a few other tricks up his sleeve that make him pretty powerful as well. But that I'll discuss that when we actually get to episode Ignis more. Because this is Gladio, so I should be talking about Gladio. Every time you see a sword stuck in the ground like this, it's starting one of the trials. The important thing to take in mind from a trial is every time you beat one, you'll be getting a new power of Gladio. All of these powers Gladio has naturally if you play as him during the main adventure, but since this was released before everyone had the ability to be playable in the main adventure. This is just what you have. This is what you have to put up with, I mean. If you get like an AoE or like a lingering attack, abuse the hell out of it, you can parry it several times because it lingers. Sort of like in Devil May Cry 4, when you're fighting the giant saviour thing as Dante. When it does its giant laser, if you've perfectly timed the first Royal Guard, you can just spam the button and Royal Guard parry as many times as you feel like. Once all the enemies once the big enemy's dead, the rest of them fall with it. And then you can retrieve your first power. Which I think this one is being able to parry any attack as long as they're not glowing red. Let's see. It's yeah, so now even like gargantuan enemies, if the attack is not glowing red, you can still block and parry it.
Thanks for the advice and for the pick-me-up.
Well, you made it out alive. Your first trial may have ended, but many more await you on your road to an audience with the Blade Master. Prepare yourself.
When he says many more, he means 2 more. Like, I think like Core's being a little over dramatic.
Time to take a load off.
But it only took us 17 minutes to get this far, so yeah, we're making progress in this 52-minute part. Ugh. Every campfire I do save just to show the progress as we go. And Gladio is always locked to level 24, so don't worry about being under or over leveled during this. You're always level 24 regardless of what level you get to this point in.
Did he?
No. You want to know why?
Yeah, let's ask more.
I do. I mean, it can't be.
That's because he
was scared.
isn't it because he was loyal? Oh, I didn't mean to hit my mic. I think it was because he was loyal to the king.
He was scared of failing as leader of the Crown's Guard and as shield of the king. He couldn't leave His Majesty alone, weakened by the wall as he was.
I kind of feel like Core was somewhere between the Ignis and the Prompto of his team back in the day. Like, because he mentioned before that he had a lot more bravado and a lot more cockiness when he was younger, and a lot of naivety and stupidity to an extent as well. So I can imagine having that element of Prompto, but at the same time he is a very wise individual, so he might have been like a mixture of the two. But with Gladio's family instead, like with Gladio's father and his father and all that, they've always remained loyal as the shield of the king, the final defense and strongest barrier of the king. If they're failing, you step up, sort of thing.
30 years or so.
Which, as much as I enjoy a whole royal like a traditional family having to do the traditional thing, and then the youngest new one rebels against the system, I do also enjoy the fact that this one doesn't do that.
Familiar to you?
Gladio is loyal to his tradition, is loyal to his family, and loyal to the royal family, but by proxy, and sticks to it. So instead of only seeing the bad things of sticking to tradition and why you should rebel against it, you actually see the system in function, in action, and see why it works and why it's there. Which is it's really rare, but I enjoy it for what it is. But anyway, as we approach up here, we approach a new game mechanic. These columns that are around, they're worthless. No, I'm joking. They are worthless, really, but if you go up to them, you can interact with them and pull them off their stands, where they're off their groundwork. From here, you're going to see me immediately hit square to try and block an attack, and square just drops it, so that was a waste. So the next one we get will show it off. But when you have a column, if you hit circle, you'll swing it around like you will a normal weapon. But every time it hits it, it takes a quarter off its life bar, which is at the top of the screen when you pick it up. So after 4 hits, it will break. Additionally, if you hit triangle, you'll do a special attack with it, which will break it in 1. Thankfully, you can do the special attack at any point, so if you want to get the most use out of it, you should swing it 3 times, then hit triangle. This thing is mostly powerful, but it takes a long time to get off, so you might lose, like, viable rage multipliers before you get a chance to really use it. Also, Core kills this thing before I have a chance to actually use it, but this is the triangle attack. Anyway, let's move on. There's also a trophy for this episode, because there were DLC trophies that came with each of the main episodes and Royal Edition and Comrades. And one of the episode Gladio that's probably the more annoying ones is collect every single item in one run of the episode. Like on your first couple runs, you're gonna miss at least one. You're gonna miss at least one or two, which is really annoying when you spend like 40 minutes. Well, you can do it in under half an hour if you're just racing through, skipping all the cutscenes. But you spend all that time and then you reach the end and the trophy doesn't pop because you missed one. You're like, oh, for God's sake. The only other one that's really annoying is getting 1,000,000 points in score attack, because you have to actually be relatively competent at Gladio to get it, which I'm not, so it took me a while to get it. Anyway, this is your second trial, killing the Enkidu.
How many moons has it been? Since our last visitor? Far more than I can count.
This one's not too bad. If he's on the ground, you're just working as normal. If he breathes fire, once again you can parry it several times. Every time he flies up, he's going to do a more traditional attack with a parry system. As in, like in the main game, you just hold square and a set animation will play out afterwards of you countering it. It's kind of a time killer, so if you're doing score attack, you might want to try and find a way to avoid you doing it if you can get away with it, or hope you just get lucky with a lot more traditional attacks like this. But it's there anyway. Ow. The timing for the recovery does take a little to get used to. Once you learn it, it's quite powerful, but you're not going to see me get it every single time I'm knocked down when I'm playing this. Half the time it's because I'm not expecting to get knocked down. Which you should never expect to get knocked down. You should always expect to do the best you can and just work through it. Yeah, it does it a third time, and now you get to start to see what I mean, but it's a bit of a time killer, because it just plays out this exact same long animation every time, where he punches it a few times, then stabs it for it to finally come to the ground. And then let's finish it off with a razor edge and leave it at that. And let's go get our second power. Also, if you've been watching this Let's Play for, like, since the start, and for some reason paid attention to things I say, you might recall that I said I planned to try and get guests for when it came to the DLC episodes. Well, unfortunately, for this one, it's fallen through. I'm still trying to get in contact with a friend of mine for episode Ignis, but that's a let's just see what happens sort of thing. So apologies if you were looking forward to having someone other than me talk for once. But unfortunately, it fell through and I couldn't get it done. Which also means all this gameplay is my recording, because that was the other thing I was trying to see if I could do or plan out. I was going to have my guests, since each guest I want to get for each respective bit prefer that character, I was going to have them play it, so then you get a bit of their gameplay to mix it up. But by the looks of things, it's going to end up being all my gameplay. Ow. But it is what it is, so I'll just deal with it. This is one of the better places to get the most out of your points to score attack. You get that up to 4 times. Just parry and you'll take out like 8 of them in a single swing because there's so many around. Which is what you're seeing me do here. I'm waiting for the parry a lot of the time. I'm not really just swinging wildly. Well, now I am, after I said that. And equally, like, there's another area not too far away from where we are that has a mountain ton of enemies that's brilliant for point whoring. God, Core runs faster than us, Christ. You just bolted over to the door. I'm trying to remember what's down here. I think this is the Wallmaster. No, not yet. But then, slight spoilers, there's a Wallmaster we'll be fighting a little later on. But this one's another one that's actually pretty good to get it. If you can parry your Soul of Fortitude, there's a scripted parry you can sometimes do with them that does a crap ton of damage and hits a lot of enemies, so if you're doing it on score attack, it's definitely worth your time. I don't get it that time. You see, I've done it before this part so far, but only the once, I think. So you'll see, like, we almost like grab it by the arm, swing it round, and then throw it. There are some attacks I wish we had a bit more control on with Gladio, like when he decides to throw his sword or when he decides to do the jumping slash. I wish there was a bit more control in it, because it's dependent on like your distance to the enemy and like a few other factors I'm not sure on. I'm sure more competent players can tell me what are the factors and what controls them, but I wish there was more of a direct like button input sort of thing, instead of it being context dependent.
I don't think so.
Think what you may, but I know otherwise. The Lucis you call home is nothing like the Lucis I once served. Your age has forgotten the horrors of war.
And this soul here, the third soul we bumped into, is a very much a back in my day, we were tougher than this is you snowflakes. That shit.
Defending the true king could be born from such depravity.
Thanks for the vote of confidence.
Look on the bright side. Everyone loves an underdog.
Yeah, good point, Core. Thanks for that. These guys are a pain in the dick, by the way. I was going to mention it earlier, but we were talking about columns at the time. But these guys in score attack are really annoying. Sometimes they just sit around and do jack and shit, and then the one time you're like, why don't you fucking attack it? And then they'll just quickly cheap shot tap you. Like, and when you're trying to do the score attack system of making sure your rage set 4.0 before you attack so you can maximize the points, these guys are the ones that will just waste all your time. Like, genuinely, when it comes to showing off score attack when we eventually get to it, don't be surprised if you see me just immediately kill those guys when we get to it. But now we killed this. Now we got the second trial done. I didn't show off, but we've got Maelstrom, a third tier on our attack now. You haven't got full on Duel Master. Duel Master is what is supposed to be your victory reward for defeating this entire episode, which is why we could do it in the main game, because once again, Universal, the episodes are separate from the main adventures. So no matter how many times you start a new save file or what you do, after you've done the episode, it's done universal across every single save file, even when you start a new one afterwards. So this guy's just annoying, because they just sit around and do shit all. So you end up wasting time, which, although time isn't the most important thing in score attack, you know, you can still run out of time, in which case they give you 0 points and kick you out. They don't allow for dawdling. Which is annoying, because I'd much rather have them just made it so you don't get a time bonus than what they actually do.
Or will you fall to your knees?
This run in particular, this corridor is the perfect example, because they don't attack you, they'll run at you a bunch, don't attack you, and then they'll just little pot shot with you when you finally like don't expect it. It's just so stupid and annoying. So I just stop trying and just keep on going full on aggressive and just deal with it as we go. Because neither of them are attacking, they're just sitting around dawdling. Thankfully I got lucky on that one, so it gave it to me. Which, for the special parry for these guys, you stamp on their head, and rightly so, they're dicks. I don't like, these are the only enemies in the episode Gladiolus I really don't like. And it's just because of score attack. In the main adventure they're fine, it's just in score attack they do dill and squat, and then will randomly pot shot you after doing dill and squat for ages. So they just waste your time and then whack you for your troubles. Oh, there's a little bump, sorry.
Take a break.
This is our last campfire, I believe. Our last proper campfire before it ends. So I have one more thing to ask Core and get him to explain about, and then we'll be progressing on to the final trial. Many trials, Core says, but we're already nearly there. And what's the subject this one, on this time round?
Never thought I'd make my way back to the tempering grounds.
You said it's been 30 years. Were you as immortal then as you are now?
If you want to know, I'll talk.
That doesn't... The worst part, I think the thing that bugs me is that doesn't really work in a normal conversation.
The Blade
Like-
Master.
Like, there's a conversation way where that is very much, that's almost like gamey line of dialogue Core could have given. Like, you know that's a video game line, not like a person's line.
Even before I did.
It's like, well, if you want to know,
Try
I'll talk. And it's like, well, do you want to know, player? And it's like, he could have made it more clear if he tried.
Let's go.
But that's the last one, so let's progress onwards. Something I forgot to mention until now, but it's just because it's caught my eye. Your rage meter will stay at the level it is outside of combat, so you get it up to 4 times and then finish the fight. Keep that in mind, you're entering the next fight at 4 times. This is oh, that's one of them. So there's another one where you grab them by the arm and throw them over, but that one's also really good because it does count as an AoE as well. You'll make a little shockwave when they hit the ground. That's the jumping strike. Once again, it's sort of distant dependent. There's probably a few other factors, but I just don't know them. Alright, thanks, Core. Also in Score Attack, you won't have Core assisting you. So keep that in mind as well. Which, to be fair, is helpful for Score Attack, because otherwise you'd end up losing points, because Core would just kill them. Here's the Wallmaster. Your first real interaction with one. The Wallmaster designs in 15 are pretty different to how they usually are. Now, don't get me wrong, it's usually a monster crawling out of the wall, but it's the actual design. This isn't like a HD design, the classic. It's a completely new, more almost tree-like design out of it, with long fingernails and just more, I don't know, some more like branches coming out of it instead of horns. It's a weird design. I like it. Don't get me wrong. It's just weird. When the design of the monsters themselves usually somewhat resemble shields or something that's usually fortress-like or defensive base, because they're a wall at the end of the day. Also, the Wallmaster is one of the more awkward enemies to get Maelstrom and Jewelmaster on, because, you know, they're slightly above you, so a lot of the strikes will miss. So I just try and get done with it and get the kill in. Also, yeah, this guy's annoying because he can stretch his limbs, so you're gonna see him hit us from across the screen sometimes. Oh, Core killed it, I think. Yeah, he did. But damn it, Core! And as soon as it dies, you just carry on. It's not like a mini boss and break. This is the second area I was on about. That's brilliant for point whoring, because there's just so many guys in here. You get yourself up to 4 times, you're set on one swing. But in a normal game, I won't be able to show it off as much, because any I don't kill, Core's going to kill very quickly. And there's the final trial door as well over there, so we're nearly there. Actually, is it the final trial? Actually, there might be a 4th one. I might have got it wrong. No, because I think the 4th trial is the fight against Gilgamesh, so there's technically 3. Yeah, no, okay, because this one is the last proper trial, but then the next one we have a sword like this is to go straight to Gilgamesh, which is technically the 4th trial, but this is the 3rd trial of basically 3. Because the next one is just the boss fight at the end. And the reward for doing this one is the one that feels a little cheap. Like, being able to block any attack as long as they're not glowing red, awesome. A new technique to use, practical and helpful. The one for this one just allows you to hurt Gilgamesh, spoilers. It's just a bit like, oh, okay. So it's just a plot specific one, it's not actually helpful. And this is like a mini version of the Iron Giant, which is why it's got a different name. It's a weird alternate Iron Giant. Which makes sense, because at the end of the day, Gladio's only mid-20s in his levels right now. So fighting an actual Iron Giant on his own would be quite a big ordeal to ask. And there is a special counter for this thing where you climb up it and then stamp its head into the ground. And this guy also hits like a truck. My first real attempt trying to get 1,000,000 points on Score Attack, I actually ran out of time on this guy because of how much time I wasted on the armoured turtle things I was on about earlier. The thing is, Maelstrom might be really powerful, but this episode is, as you can probably notice, actually quite well balanced with it. That you do a lot of damage with it, but there's still a lot to go with it. But once you beat this episode, well, it said you get to Jewelmaster. You get to start the episode again with Jewelmaster anytime you feel free. Jewelmaster, yeah, no, this isn't balanced for Jewelmaster. Jewelmaster would have killed him. Yet the 4 times you use Jewelmaster, it's dead, that's it. At the end of the fight. Which works as a reward for the episode, but it's unbalanced as shit. but he's nearly dead now. I think I go a bit just chaotic because the times this guy chooses to attack is a bit weird. So I just decide to carry on as is and just go from there. So anytime it glows red, it's an unblockable attack. I haven't really specified that, but I thought it was pretty obvious. I didn't really feel the need to so far. He's nearly dead now anyway. And all of his glowing red attacks are very easy to avoid. Just dodge left or right. Because they're all vertical down attacks. Except this one. Well, that one's vertical up. But it's still vertical. If you dodge left or right, you're dodging them. There we go, he's dead now. But I did get to show off the parry I was on about. And I use one more potion. Get a plot-specific, useless otherwise power. And that's the last proper trial finish, because next is the boss fight.
Now naught but the final trial awaits you.
But it's not the final trial, it's just Gilgamesh now. But if you're following the trials, this one allows you to damage Gilgamesh, and that's all it does. If it ups your overall damage, then I'd be happy. But no, it's just a plot-specific, hurt Gilgamesh now. But I'll let that go as we approach the actual last campfire of the thing, because I was misremembering yet again. I only recorded this like a week and a half ago. My memory shouldn't be this bad on it. I think that just says a lot about my memory in general, really. But I say that, I think I can at least take some of it and say that episode Gladiolus is probably the most forgettable of the episodes in terms of story. Like, in terms of gameplay, Gladiolus is great and arguably one of the best to play as. But in story-wise, it's just Gladio feel bad about getting his ass kicked by Ravus, wants to be stronger, gets stronger.
You were a lot younger than I am.
And you had to get a little bit of story from Core if you want it at the same time.
Wouldn't listen to a single word anyone said. I thought I was invincible. No one could stop me. Until he cut me down to size. I was cast out in defeat. My hubris laid bare for all to see. You really are immortal, they said. And it stuck.
Yeah, so Core the Immortal, the nickname is more of an insult than a compliment in the eyes of Core. Because he believed himself as all-powerful, believed himself as unstoppable. And the moment he had his pride absolutely demolished, and everything he stood for actually ruined, then everyone was going, oh well, you really are immortal. Because they didn't see him get demolished, all they saw was him survive. Something that no one else had. So it became more of like a brandished insult against him instead of actually being the compliment it was meant to be. But now we approach the final gate to be able to go fight Gilgamesh, and we have a cutscene that needs to play out first. And this one I will shut up for.
Clarus would have tried to stop you, you know. Just like he tried to stop me. All those years ago.
How come?
Because one aspiring to the role of King's Shield can stake his life for none but his liege. Not even for himself. Do you dare risk all for naught in return? His words stayed with me. And he was right. I barely made it back with nothing to show for it.
So you gonna stop me?
No, I won't. But I will warn you one last time of the danger you're about to face. Just like your father warned me. Once you set foot through that door, there's no turning back. And no one to help you if you fall. One false step and it may prove your last.
I'll be fine. Maybe I'll come back with a souvenir.
Just come back alive. Be safe, Gladio.
And now we get our fight with Gilgamesh. You have a last little bit of prep, but you're entirely on your own for this. Gilgamesh is waiting on you on the big bridge.
Ready for me.
Which is fitting because of his is what's now known as his theme, the Clash from the Big Bridge, from Final Fantasy V, then remixed in 12 and 13.2 and now 15. It's also in World of Final Fantasy as a remix in it as well. And then in the anniversary of Final Fantasy 1, the re-release of that also had a guitar remix of it as well. So Clash of the Big Bridge has been remixed a lot of times, and rightly so. It's a great ass theme. But the cutscene is extremely short, so I will be talking over it as we get into the main fight, the main event of episode Gladiolus, the fight against Gilgamesh. Gilgamesh, you're gonna love these stat lists. Level unknown, HP unknown, strength unknown, defense unknown, spirit unknown. He is neutral to everything, but you can only use your greatsword in this anyway, so it doesn't matter. The main strategy in this first phase is dependent on what weapon he has. He has a claymore, a longsword, and a rapier. If he's using the claymore, every single attack he launches at you is unblockable. Every single one of them. So you'll be playing a very evasive game and picking your moments when you can. With the longsword, it's in the middle. Some of his attacks are unblockable, some of them aren't. But he's a bit faster and hits a lot lighter. So you don't have to worry about it, you can do that. Lastly, he has this, the rapier. Every single attack the rapier throws at you is parryable, but he will strike very many times every time he goes to attack. Not too dissimilar to the fight against Aranea, where it doesn't matter that his strength and damage he's dealing is not that high, it's the fact that he's hitting you several times that it will be a nuisance to you. Worth mentioning, the claymore can put you down in like 1 or 2 strikes if it hits you, whilst the longsword can put you down in about 3 or 4, and the rapier will take quite a stretch of energy for him to actually put you down. It's just the fact he can hit you 5 or 6 times in a row if you're not careful. He'll be swapping weapons on the fly whenever he kind of feels like it, so pay attention. Anytime you see him stab the weapon into the ground, he's going to swap into another one. Also, that's the only AoE he has, the only unblockable even that he has tied to the rapier, and it's swapping to another sword. It's to make sure that it's essentially just to make sure you can't interrupt him getting his other sword. But he's gone back to the claymore, which means every single strike is unblockable, so we have to be very careful with this. You see, I tried to block that and I just tanked over 1,000 damage because of it. If you take it straight on the chin, it will be hitting a lot worse. Like, so if you block it, you do partially reduce the damage you'll take on it, but it will still hit like a truck. Or if you do what I did there, where the blade itself didn't reach me, it just hit my shield, I managed to barely get away with not taking any damage for that. Ow. We are going to burn through a fair amount of potions in this fight. Also, yeah, if you attack willy-nilly when he's not attacking you, he will just guard you until you where to stick it, essentially. For score attack, whether or not this fight goes well and you get a lot of points out of it is completely dependent on what weapons he gets. But as soon as he gets very close to running out of health, he will use his spiritual energy to make himself back a second arm. And now he will use as main event the weapon. He will abandon whatever weapon he was using beforehand and adopt the Genji blade. Something that's trademark within Gilgamesh is that he always has Genji equipment. He usually doesn't have a Genji blade though, this I think he usually has Excalibur. But the compromise, he doesn't have Genji armor, but it's also because we don't have any kind of thievery system with Gladiolus, so we can't steal any of the Genji shield or Genji helm, Genji armor, things like that, which are usually like one of the best armor sets in the game. And it's also because this is plot based, and so everything that happens in episode Gladio kind of stays in episode Gladio in terms of equipment. Like the blade we're using, we don't actually have. I think it's called the hard edge we're using, which we didn't have on Gladio when we finished. He had like the Thunderbolt, I think it was, on him. But this is the main attraction of the fight and the main event. The Genji blade will fuck you up very hard, and the main strategy involves just paying attention. You can parry, and if he starts trying to combo you, you can parry a lot of it in the combo to get a lot of strikes in. Just keep in mind that when he is parrying, the last strike will always be an unblockable in his combo. And that's how he got his scar, by the way. He managed to cut us clean across the forehead during the fight. So if you're wondering how the scar happened, yeah, it was this very fight. And I've got to say, the remix of Clash on the Big Bridge, it's not my favourite, but it's damn good. I will not take that away from it. This is a bloody brilliant remix of Clash on the Big Bridge. I absolutely love it because it's the most cinematic, most dramatic, and most important incarnation of it. By the way, this is Duel Master. If you see Duel Master coming at you, keep in mind every strike but the last one is blockable. This last one you have to move out of the way from, because otherwise it will slam you. Once you beat him, you'll be able to use Duel Master freely when you retackle the event. Retackle episode Gladiolus. But it makes sense, because this is the first time, really, that Gilgamesh has ever been a serious fight. So every other time, it's been kind of a joke fight, where it's kind of been a haha, whatever. The closest he's ever been to serious was in his first appearance in Final Fantasy V, where when you fight him on the bridge, he was fighting to serve his Lord X death. Also, this is like the Duel Master saying, this time I know to dodge, because I remember. And he managed to take him down and end the fight, and defeat Gilgamesh once and for all.
I kneel before no man! Not exactly the souvenir I had in mind. It took me a while, but I realized something. You're right. I am afraid. Afraid of accepting the fact that maybe I'm not really cut out for the job I'm expected to do. But hey, at least I'm not walking away empty-handed. I'd better get going. I may be all muscle and no metal, but I'm gonna keep protecting Noct the only way I know how.
Spoken like a true shield of the king. Fear and doubt beget death alone. He who averts his gaze from his own faults cannot himself a true shield call. But you, having made peace with your inner self, have proven you are worthy. The chosen king should be so fortunate as to have a man like yourself serving at his side.
You mean?
And with this glaive, I entrust my power to you.
Where did you...
Taken from the young man who impressed me with his strength of will. It was with this very blade he stole from me my arm.
But... I can't accept this.
If he still walks among the living, a man of his mettle will have doubtless transcended attachment to mere material possessions.
You're probably right. In that case, don't mind if I do.
Now, hasten forth, with mind unclouded by doubt and will unmoved by fear. The last king of Lucis is ill fit to fight without his shield.
Thanks again.
And that's it for episode Gladiolus. So the main adventure is still far from done. This is just one piece of the story as we go through it. But I did enjoy going back and doing episode Gladiolus again. As much as I do feel it's probably the weakest of the 3 episodes in terms of storytelling, it is up there as one of the better ones in terms of gameplay. And it was fun to go through and just cause some chaos with a bit of electric guitar powering you through as you go on. So now we have the Genji blade to keep for herself, so now I can actually equip it because it makes sense for Gladio to have it in the main adventure. But there's not too much more for me to say here, so I'll keep this brief. Next time on Final Fantasy 15, we're going to start tackling the last of the Royal Tomb dungeons, which is the one up by the Vesper Pool next part, and then the part afterwards, the dreaded Crystalmark Tower, that I've been alluding to for a very long time now, of how much I detest and how much I dread. But with all that said, I'll see you guys then. So, until then, you guys take care now.
Complete the trial. You need to wield your weapon with a primal finesse. If you fail to prove your might, you get cast out empty-handed.
I don't know. He didn't seem to think the guy would let it bother him. Said the guy's too old to care about material things anymore. If he's still alive.
Gladio.
Huh?
I hope you feel more confident in light of your success today. Few men can lay claim to such an accomplishment. Not even Kor the Immortal.
Yeah, but I didn't earn myself a badass nickname like he did. Still, I'm glad I went through with it. I can finally say I'm truly ready to fulfill my duty.
Good.
Well, I guess this shield better mosey on back to his king. Wouldn't want him to get scared without me.
So that's how you got it.
What do you think?
Very perpendicular. Really complements the one you got when you saved Noct from that bully.
Yeah. Only difference is, this time, I ended up taking a pretty bad beating too.
Not unlike the licking the Marshal received back when he was a lad.
Must have had a lot of guts to go up against Gilgamesh back then.
Yeah, Dad said he used to be a real firecracker.
The more you know.
If the Blade Master sequestered himself during the Founder King's reign, then he's haunted those halls for some 2 millennia.
That's a long time.
All those years waiting for the chosen king to arise. You sure know how to take your sweet old time.
What can I say? I'm worth the wait.
Give me a break!
And I as well.
Just because you got a shield to protect you now doesn't mean you get to slack off. But if you do, I'll be ready.